lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. In my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thursday edition of the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm really thrilled you're here. Thanks so much for coming in and joining me on this journey on this fine Thursday night. It's kind of cool. It's staying lighter out, which means the days are getting longer, and they're getting warmer. So we're on the right track, I think, but I hope you all are ready, because even though it's brighter out, it's time for bed. All right, guys. I hope you're having a great week. Tomorrow's Friday, so it's cruising by, and we are heading towards the end zone here. We're carrying the ball, and we're about to score. Friday is the big day, and not for any other reason that it's Friday. I don't have any huge news or anything that I know of yet, but there's a lot of things cooking right now, and that's all I can tell you for sure. But a lot of things I'm really, really excited about, and I'll be sharing those with you in the very near future if everything goes as planned. So, but stay tuned for any news and great news. Stay tuned for great news from the Paranormal Portal. So tonight, of course, it's bedtime stories, so let's get right underway. And hello to everybody that's come into the chat room. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and some new faces, and that's awesome. It's what you make it. Oh, thank you. It's what you make it. Says, my son and I just love your intro song. That's a song I wrote about probably 6 years ago, and I just had it on a shelf for a long time now. When I started doing the portal, I never thought about using my own music. I love to write music. It's just something I've always been really passionate about. But, music's a tough thing to do for a living, so it was just a hobby, but something that I really love doing. And I started doing the portal, and once we started going on to YouTube and stuff, all of a sudden I ran into copyright strikes. I found out that they don't like it when you play other people's music. So I had this whole playlist of really cool songs that I would, open the shows with, and had a good time with it until we started streaming and YouTube started spanking me. So I'm like, I'm just going to use my own music. Nobody can complain about that. And so that's why I did it. And the feedback you guys have been giving me is really cool. Thank you so much. That means the world. Most of my songs were written about bad breakups, as it were. But I don't know. It was music was really my therapy. You know, it was how I dealt with a lot of emotions and processed it through the noise instead of becoming self-destructive or developing bad habits. So it was a real therapeutic thing for me. But I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I may at some point put it up on iTunes. I've had a lot of requests for doing that, and that's another thing I've never gotten around for doing. But if I do, I'll be sure to let you guys know. And if you want a copy of it, great. If not, just keep tuning in because I promise I'll keep playing it. So, all right. Anything else going on, guys? Hey, Zero Mind, good to see you. Duke, how you doing, brother? Great to see you. I'm just kind of going through the list here. I should go through the participants list, and we'll see how complete it is. And then I'll look at the regular list. But we got Aussie Tiger Rock Fam is in here. Bigfoot Michigan Rob is in here. Black Tree is in here. Duke is in here. Which is Brian Sullivan, if you're not aware. Chev is in here. Danny Lucas is in here. Duck Sauce is in here. How you doing, Neil? Good to see you. Haxer's in here. It's What You Make It is in here. Lena Hickman, Louis Ta, Matthew Learned. All you guys are in here. And M. Hetzel. Oh, is that you, M. Cat? M. Hetzelmister. But then Nellie's in here. Good to see you. I'm in here. Randall is in here. Renee is in here. Terrestrial Mac is in here. And Zero Mind is in here. So if I missed you, it's because YouTube's list sucks. But I'm just going to gloss over the chatting that's been going on to see if I see any other names that I didn't recognize from that list. But I think we got it. Okay. Oh, yeah, it is you. Okay, see, this is MCAT on my work phone. Gotcha, brother. I see your chat now that you said that. But, yeah, let's get into some stories and see if we can kind of spook you a bit. Oh, hey, Gentry, good to see you. Good to see you. Glad you made it in. Let's get into some spooky stories. Let's do those bedtime stories that I've been promising you up to this point. Okay, the first one I'm going to do is from Ohio. Man, my kid's just jamming. I don't know. Can you guys hear that TV coming through? Can you hear the background sound? No, of course it stops. But I was just hearing, it's like, oh man, that's jamming. Okay, so no problem. But let's get into this. I was spoken to by ghosts, only they didn't reveal themselves in a visual form, and they did not speak with voices. Instead, they spoke with energy. When I was working on my undergrad, I did a paper about cemeteries, and I decided to go out to the oldest cemetery in my tiny town, dating back to 1814. Wow, that's plenty old. When I got there, one headstone stood out to me and made me feel kind of sad. It was a marker for 3 little girls, all who had died by age 10. Wow, what a horrible heartbreaker that is. A week later, I went back to visit them, and I felt so sad for them. They were so young, and their last names weren't even etched into the headstone. While visiting, I then got the overwhelming urge to look at the headstone behind their stone. I just ignored it and left. The following week, I stopped by again, and I got the same urge to look at the other headstone again, and this time I went with it. Then I saw it. At the back of their headstone, written on the other side, were their last names and the names of their parents. And then I felt this energy, like someone telling me, "We are good parents. Thank you. But we can take care of our daughters." It seemed like the energy was all over in the air, in the wind, and I could hear them even though they didn't speak. That's really profound. And to be able to interpret that as well is really powerful. Oftentimes, and here's the thing. So I think that many people, and in fact, I think most people have some level of empathy or another. I mean, of course, there's some people that have no connection outside of themselves. They're just like these islands, and they just seem really detached and cold. But most of us have a sense of empathy, and we do oftentimes get these messages, I think. But the problem is that most of us don't realize what empathy truly is, and so we think that we're just having a really crappy day, or we think that we're just not feeling well, or we think, all these things. And of course, sometimes that is the case. But I think sometimes that is us picking up on other people. So like, for instance, for me personally, going to Walmart is hard. Now, I have nothing against Walmart. I think it's a fine store, and I think the people there are fine. But one thing I notice about Walmart is the people that work there aren't happy to be there. I mean, they just seem down and beaten up and sad, and it just feels heavy to me. And so for me to go into Walmart is really like, I just try to dive in there and get what I need and get the hell out. And again, I'm not disparaging anybody. I know that, people have tough lives, and of course, I don't think anybody really aspires to work at Walmart. It's just kind of what's left. What can I do to make a living? So, but it's that frustration that you seem to feel through the whole store, and you can hardly get anybody to smile most of the time, which is, kind of a tragedy in and of itself, because customer service is really a dying art. Hey, Deb, look at all those. Man, you guys are just haying each other. It's like a big super episode of the Waltons in the chat room here. And I might have just dated myself, because some of you guys are going, the what's? The Waltons was an old television show. And at the end, they would all say goodnight each other, and to each other back and forth. And it took like a few minutes. And that seems like what's going on in the chat room right now. But yeah, it's like an energy vortex. You're right, Duck Sauce. That's exactly it. It just feels like nobody's happy to be there. So I think a lot of times when people, like, they hate their job, but it may be because you're working around all kinds of negative people, and that negative energy is just permeating you. Like, maybe you'd love your job if you didn't have certain people there, that are casting such a cloud over everybody else. Because there are empaths, and then there are narcissists. And the narcissists will just spill everything they are all over the place, and the empaths kind of suck it up. And it's really almost a codependence of sorts in some cases. But I think that understanding what is yours is really powerful. And when you recognize that maybe these bad feelings that I'm having aren't mine at all, where are they coming from? And start following them and see if you can feel who's having the problem. And maybe they just need someone to talk to. So then you go, hey, are you all right? Everything okay? And I've done this many times, and a lot of times people are like, oh, then they go into this big story about how things are going sideways for them. And it's, they just really needed someone to talk to, but nobody's there. So until then, they were just bleeding this energy, and it was just really dark and heavy. So I don't know if that pertains to any of you or not, but it certainly does for me. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't realize that, and we end up thinking it's our issues or there's something wrong with us. But it's just, I think a lot of times, in many cases, not all the times, in many cases, people are picking up other people's garbage, and they're assuming it's their own. So just pay attention to those things and try to follow it and see if it is really yours, or does it go somewhere. And that's all I can tell you. It's a great exercise, and it's also good for, recognizing the flow and process of energy is the best way I can put it. It sounds a little esoteric and out there, but honest to God, it works for me. All right, let's get to the next one. This one's coming out of California. Excuse me. I could have muted that, but I just love sharing everything with you guys. So California, I hate doing ghost investigations on weekends. Oh, is this one of those? Hold on a sec. Yeah, it is. It is one of those. I'm not going to read this one. These tend to be, they have these opening parts, and then they end up reading like a log, and that's really not very entertaining for me to read to you. So next one is California, and this is not too long. It's a medium-sized story, so this is a shorter version of what happened to me. You can read the original version by following this link, which I'm not going to worry about right now, but I have dealt with things that go bump in the night most of my life, always making me wonder if I was a bit of a strange child. But never did I dream that I would live day to day with an entity. It can be just as spooky and unnerving as all the movies you have seen, but it can also be very stressful. You just have to keep laughing to get through it. Easy to say now, years later. We moved into a huge house on 23rd Street in a small farming town not far from San Jose, just before Christmas of 1998. I lived there alone with 3 children, while their father commuted to San Jose, coming home on weekends. The first night was filled with the new house exploration, the usual moving and settling in activities, keeping me heavily occupied both day and night. And I knew there was a hidden cubbyhole in the kitchen cupboards, only 2 feet tall and 2 feet deep and 1 foot wide and about 6 feet off the ground. What puzzled us so greatly was that the latch to prevent access to the hidden area was inside the cupboard door, meaning you had to be inside the cupboard in order to latch it. Talk about adding thoughts to your imagination. I was going back and forth through the house, 3,000 square feet of house, built in a lovely 1920 French door style, with large wandering rooms and hallways, walk-in closets, surprise turns and windows that led to nowhere, and I absolutely love the Winchester Mystery House, so this suited me perfectly. The children were asleep, and I was sorting room to room. Each time I passed the cupboard, the door was open. I'd close it and continue on my way, only to pass by later and again to find it open again. I tried ever so hard to ignore the creepy feeling crawling up both my arms to my neck, and it kept occurring to me that I knew absolutely no one within 100 miles. I was absolutely alone with 3 small children. Since Christmas was rapidly approaching, I took the time when the children were asleep to wrap presents, and I kept wrapping papers in a very heavy, large old trunk opening at the top, and when the trunk was open, the top rested backwards heavily against the metal retaining straps. The balance of the lid was so that if the trunk had been empty, it would almost be in danger of tipping over backwards. I was in the process of removing rolls of paper from the trunk and had just withdrawn my hand when the lid came crashing closed and the animals ran from room to room. It took my breath away and all remaining logical thoughts from my brain. I must have sat for several minutes, stunned, yearning for a logical explanation. The animals wouldn't return to that room for quite some time. Further into the night, I was setting up the dining room table for meals, placing quilted placemats down for the family, and one of my dog's 2-inch toy balls came rolling towards me ever so slowly and ever so steadily, making the softest whispering sound as it gently rolled on the highly polished wooden floor. Not a sound could be heard except for the ball's whisper. When the ball stopped, the house was filled with silence. Eerie, uncomfortable silence. The parrot was silent, watching the ball. The dogs were motionless, looking at me and the ball with puzzled expressions. I tried to convince myself that this was normal, that there was some explanation. I picked it up, placed it on the placemat in front of me, and I stood there for the longest time and watched it. Nothing. No sound. No movement. It had to have been moved by an animal that I did not notice. Okay, heartbeat back to normal, things to do, and just as I started to turn away, the ball actually leaped into the air about a half an inch and rolled off the table back onto the floor. I watched it in shocked silence as it made its way to the dining room wall, where it stopped and rested silent, finished. Well, that's really, really wild. Now, I'm really curious about that cubby in the cupboard. I don't understand that. And, honestly, I'm thinking of when Robin Moonshadow was on, who comes on the show to talk about proto-pygmies and stuff. And she talks about house gnomes. And, that they're actually very fortuitous most of the time to have around. And, I mean, why would you need a little hole, that you could latch from the inside? I don't understand that. It's very, very curious, but that I just have to believe that hole was built for something, and a ghost doesn't make sense. A ghost doesn't make sense because Of course, ghosts can go allegedly right through things like that. So why would it need an access door? So there's something really, really wild going on there, but I'm not so convinced this is a haunting kind of thing. I think it might be something else. I don't know. Very strange. Very, very strange, but a very cool story. I like that one. A suicide cupboard? I'm not sure what that is, Aussie. I don't know if you get a chance, let me know what that would be. All right, the next one I'm going to read you is from California. Again, it's a popular place tonight, California. Let's see. This took place in San Diego 6, maybe 7 years ago, and I lived in a 2-story house with my mom and stepfather, and the roof of the house was angled steeply on both sides. To get an image of the house and where I was at, the front door opens right to a small tiled area with the door to my bedroom on the left and the door to the garage on the right. A straight staircase from the tiled area leads upstairs to the living room, kitchen, and other bedrooms. There's a hatchway to the attic in the ceiling at the top of the staircase. Early on a Saturday evening, I was home alone in my bedroom with the door closed, and I heard someone knock on my door. Now, my parents were long gone at Lake Havasu, so I know they weren't around, and I could see the area by the front door from my window, so I looked there, but didn't see anyone. But I went to the front door anyway, and before I opened the front door, I heard very heavy thumping sounds from the ceiling, as if someone was walking across the roof or in the attic. I just stood there at the bottom of the staircase, staring up the stairs at the attic hatchway for at least 5 minutes, and the footstep sounds continued. 1 minute it sounded like someone walking slowly, and the next it sounded like someone jogging, and the next minute it stopped like someone was pacing randomly. I kept telling myself that there was an animal up there, but the animals just don't sound like this did. I was really pretty scared, but very curious too. I grabbed a chair and a bat from my bedroom and headed upstairs, and I'm not sure what I thought I was going to do, but I went anyway. Going up the stairs and closer to the ceiling, I'm positive it was coming from the attic. Besides, the roof was very steep, so I can't imagine someone walking around too much up there. And when I got to the top of the stairs and under the attic door, I lost most of my nerve and just waited. The steps had stopped for that moment, and then it sounded as if someone sprinted across the ceiling and stopped right above me. Oh, that's not creepy at all. Jesus. Wow. It was so loud and so clear, I can still hear it right now. I decided not to look at the attic after that, and instead to just leave whatever it was alone. I left the house for the night soon after and never heard the footsteps again. I've had other strange experiences and encounters in this house, one of which I talk about in another entry. And that's the end of that one. I guess we could read his other entry. Let's see what that is. So this is the other story that was written by this person. And it says, this took place about 6 years ago. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, this story is from 2007. So that would make it 2001. And I lived with my mom and stepfather, and we stayed in a 2-story house, and my bedroom was downstairs while the other bedrooms, living room, and kitchen were all upstairs. The backyard bordered a canyon, and there was a lot of trees and brush. This particular incident took place when it was about 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and 2 friends and I were in my bedroom getting ready to go out to a club, and we hadn't been drinking or anything of the sort. My parents had already gone to bed, but I heard voices upstairs as we were getting ready to leave, so I went up to check, and my stepfather was comforting my mother, and she looked terrified. They said that she woke up with the worst feeling of dread and sadness that she'd ever felt, as if something terrible had or was about to happen. My mother was never been one to make up things, and she could not have faked the horrible look in her eyes. We decided to look around out back, and when my mother said she felt like something or someone was there. By this time, my friends, Craig and Israel, had come up to see what was going on, and we got a flashlight and one of those big spotlight flashlights and scanned the backyard for any sign of animals, people, or anything. We did this from behind the closed sliding glass door since we didn't really know it was out there and we didn't see anything. And it was a clear night, so Craig, Israel, and I went out the back porch and looked some more. And I had the large spotlight and I looked through the bushes and the porch itself and even straight up at the sky thinking I might see birds or something, but nothing. We concurred that there was nothing there, and when it started to drizzle again, I remember saying, well, that figures. But then it occurred to me that it was a clear night. I looked up at the sky again, but didn't see any drops. I started to get nervous and used the spotlight to look up, but there was no rain coming down. Yet I felt it pattering on my face and arms, and I looked very carefully, but could only feel the rain. And I asked Israel, do you see that? Never mentioning rain, and he looked for a few seconds, and then his eyes got real big, and he said, there's no rain. He clearly felt it too. We ran inside the house immediately and locked the door. We both confirmed that we'd experienced the same thing and decided not to investigate any further outdoors. We never could find any explanation for the occurrence, as there weren't any sprinklers within reach of where we were at. The sky was clear, and even if there were, we couldn't see the drops with the flashlights. That's crazy. Huh. That is bizarre. I don't know what's going on there, but creepy. Very creepy. We had a listener one time, and she and I corresponded for quite a while, and she was going through something incredibly dark with her family. And this was the kind of event that they make movies about, ladies and gentlemen. And this is no joke. And she shared some video things with me and some captures, and I really have no doubt at all in my mind that these things happened just as this person explained. And I worked with her through it and talked with her, and what was going on was she was dealing with something dark. They would see shadow people in their house. Her husband actually had worked for a company, and they lived in housing provided by that company, and it was in California. And there was something incredibly dark in that whole area. In fact, other employees of the same company lived in other houses in that area, and they too were having issues with things going on like that. And what we basically came up to the conclusion was that there was some kind of strange vortex or something in that area. She actually had rain inside of her house, and she would set up experiments where, there would be raindrops hitting the floor, and she would put paper out to see where it was coming from, because it would just manifest and hit the floor. There was no explanation for it. There was weird muddy tracks through her house that don't stand to any reason. She was getting some kind of physical manifestation in the form of like her eyes and face were swelling, and it was just really a nasty kind of deal. And it continued all the way up. I mean, I gave them several ideas and several things to work with, and they did finally move. And as soon as they moved, all the activity absolutely stopped for them. Now, I don't know if that activity is still occurring in that area, but it was really one hell of a situation. And they were so brave and so strong, and that they have children, of course, and the children were dealing with so much. But honestly, I think that it really made their whole family stronger, because they had each other. And that's really what got them through it more than anything, was that they had this love and caring for each other and supporting each other through this unbelievable mind-bending kind of situation. But it was pretty horrible, and it was quite a journey. And I'm just so glad they moved out of there. But literally, the kind of haunting that they make movies about, and and they wouldn't have to embellish a whole lot because the things that were happening in this house were absolutely off the charts. Just unreal, just unreal. It was totally Hollywood, for lack of a better term. So very wild. My family is so loud out in the other room. My God. Mrs. Portal and Minion are making a lot of noise tonight. All right. So I'm sorry if that's bleeding through the microphones, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be having a family meeting after tonight's show. Say, when I'm doing the show, how about we just don't wrestle and scream and holler? I sound like the guy from Office Space. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just looking at the chat. I haven't had any chance to check it out for a while, but I don't think I've missed any messages to me. Okay. I don't see that big orange paranormal portal. So, all right. Where am I? I'm going to open some more stories for you because it is my goal in life to keep you entertained. All right. What time is it? We've been at it for 30 minutes. Yeah, we got about another 30 minutes to go, I think, right? Ooh, this one sounds really good. I hope it is as good as it sounds. That one sounds pretty good, too. I'm just pulling up a whole batch of them here. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't read these before the show, so I am reading them for the first time as you're hearing them, hopefully for the first time. Now, so every once in a while we do end up finding stories repeated over many sites, and I can't account for that. I mean, it's just the way it rolls. Lots of sites online that basically feed off of each other, for lack of a better term. All right, so I got a few more pulled up. Let's see what's going on. All right, this one's coming from Michigan, ladies and gentlemen, and this one's a medium-sized story too. So the year that all of this happened, I think, was 1992 in December, and I was about 8 years old. Or on this day, my mother and father had gotten home from shopping, and I was excited to find out that they had gone Christmas shopping. So as I was looking through the already wrapped gifts, I saw that I had less than everyone else. Being a kid, I quickly started whining and threw a fit all over the place, and even during the explanation of why I had less, I later found out it was because I was the one constantly digging and peeking through my gifts, so they didn't want to put out more under the tree than they already had until the last minute. I ran downstairs with the only light from the back door window shining down the steps, enough to give me a view of them, and not realizing that no other light was on. And as I got to the bottom, I turned the corner into the living area where there was a bed for a guest, and I jumped on it, digging my face into the pillow. See, I thought someone was going to come down after me, but I guess they just wanted me to cry it out. After a while, my ears picked up a noise coming from around the stairs in the laundry room. See, if you went downstairs, you turned the opposite from the living area and went beside the steps into the laundry room, and it was like a whole other area back there with two closets and a little storage space behind the steps. And from there, you could actually grab someone's legs coming down because the stairs were gaped in between them, or gapped, I guess is what he meant, but I don't know if gaped is the right term or not. I'm not a construction person, but if you know what I'm saying. For the first few seconds, I would try to understand the noise and figure out where it was actually coming from. Then I thought about the laundry room, and to my horror, I then realized what it sounded like. Baby dress shoes, dancing or jumping. My heart stopped and I could not move. Even my voice was no more after trying to call out for my mom. After a few seconds, which felt like hours, I started moving off the bed, looking around the dark corner at the same time. The steps and the small part of the concrete floor led up to the back door was the only comfort I had. Moving closer to the steps, the dancing still continued, and did so until I arrived at the first step. Just before I began to run, it sounded as if the noise was coming closer to me, oh God, from around the corner. About that time, I was running up the steps yelling, "Mom, Mom!" At the same time waiting for someone to grab my feet on the way up, and I can still remember the feeling of something staring at me from the bottom of the steps. This house was not new when my parents bought it. So many strange things happened in this house during the time that we lived in it, from 1988 to 1995. If you'd like to hear some more terrifying stories from this house and my other family homes, you can email me. Well, thanks. We appreciate that offer. All right, the next one is, sounds like it might be good. It's from Texas. Sorry, I had to cough. So let's see what's going on in Texas. Many incidences have happened in my life. They're having fun. Oh, good. Gemini says they're having fun. Good. That's what it's all about here. Here's Spirit Box Paranormal Dundee. How you doing? Good to see you. I didn't see you before, but I think I've seen you before, though. So I don't think you're brand new. But welcome to the show tonight. All right. Many incidents have happened in my life, and benevolent and malevolent, and views from the other sides, but this is by far the more impressive and comforting incident in my life. My father died in January 2001 from pancreatic cancer. He was luckier than most that the excruciating pain that accompanies such cancer only struck him in the morning prior to his passing later in that evening. For the most of the last day of his life, he was semi-comatose, and he passed away shortly before 10 p.m. I had felt my father around at all. I had not felt my father around at all until the summer after his death. It was a very hot day in June, July, or August, I can't be sure. Just hot, humid, a regular scalding Texas afternoon. I was at my mother's and had just finished mowing her yard and was sitting in the shade under her oak trees, cooling off with a glass of iced tea. After the yard work, I know I wasn't asleep. It was just too hot for that. And I was gritty and sweaty from midday mowing. And I was sitting facing the house, and I saw my father, as plain as day, walk across the yard and toward the corner of the house. He was approximately 30 feet from me, and he was dressed in a red and blue striped shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and had on his favorite pair of Levi jeans, dark blue running shoes, and he was striding with purpose, his head down as if in contemplation, arms swinging, and he was as solid as if he were flesh and blood, oblivious to my presence. I had a good 15 to 20 second view of him before he disappeared, and it was just amazing. I sat in absolute awe. A wonderful feeling of peace washed over me, and I shared this with my sister, who is a firm believer due to her own experiences. However, I was hesitant to share it with my mom, who gets the willies pretty easily. I did finally share this with my mom, and she wasn't as weirded out as I thought she would be, and considering he disappeared into the wall of her house. Laugh out loud. Over the last 6 years, Mom has had a few things happen to her that could only be my father, like waking her in the middle of the night like he used to when he was alive, and my sister has seen him reflected in windows behind her, and I feel particularly blessed that I witnessed him one more time when I'm at my mom's. I do keep myself open to see if I get another sighting of my dad. Well, that's very cool. That's very, very cool. Huh. Yeah, I've only seen my dad in my dreams, but I think dreams are just as profound, and you'll certainly, I believe you'll certainly know when you're actually dreaming in an intelligent way, not just the musings of an unconscious mind. And all the times that I saw my dad in my dreams, it was always very, very, very lucid, and it was just, I retained the knowledge. Like when you sleep sometimes, when you dream, you have the most ridiculous things happen. Like you'll have friends in your dreams that you've never ever seen before. You'll you'll be part of conversations that just don't make any sense, and those are just I think just the weird dreams that our mind processes things in, in that fashion. But when I've had the visitation dreams, I am me. I'm not someone else. And I have all of my faculties and my knowledge. And it's like meeting that person. Well, as if I was meeting my dad at a coffee shop. It's the same kind of thing. Or if I met him in his front yard at the picnic table, it was just like those, we would just talk. But very, very powerful. But I've never had any kind of manifestations of anyone that has passed that was dear to me. Now, I've really honestly been pretty fortunate in a lot of ways that I've lost, family members, but, my grandmother was incredibly close to me, and I to her. We just always hung out. She was awesome. And my dad and I didn't probably have as close a relationship in life, but I as weird as it sounds and as bizarre as it sounds, I feel like I have a great relationship with him now. And that I know that sounds really bizarre, but honest to God, I think he's involved in a lot of what's going on, and I think he's actively present, and in his life he really wasn't. And I'm not disparaging my father by saying that. I mean, he was just a person that was stoic. He believed in doing work and getting things done, and he didn't have a lot of time for feelings and things like that. That just wasn't his way. But I think now that he's got the 30,000-foot view of everything, that perhaps he's, correcting some of those things he missed out in his time here. And, I don't know, maybe it's just wishful thinking. Hell, I don't know. But I just know it feels good. And I'm really happy that that's the way things are now. But yeah, I think I have not seen the apparition kind of stuff with him. In fact, I've only seen one solid apparition. And I know I saw that, but I don't think I've seen any others outside of that. I've seen the wisps and the shadows and little white hazes moving and stuff like that. I see that stuff quite regularly, but I don't see apparitions, like fully formed apparitions, except on one occasion that I'm aware of. Now, again, I think maybe there's a possibility we've all, sat and talked with a ghost before, but we just don't know it. All right, let's get to the next one. Now, this one sounds really cool, and I don't know if it will be. It's a pretty short story, so I'm not sure if it'll be great or not, but the story's called Demon Hunter, and it's out of New Jersey. At first, I didn't believe in demons and whatnot, but all of that changed when my brother went to the cemetery just for kicks. After he was done, he went home, and that's when my nightmares began. I was in my backyard, and I heard my mom calling my name, and I went to see what she wanted, but nobody was there. I asked her if she called me, and she said no. 2 days passed, and nothing. I was watching television when my sister started to scream. I ran into her room to see what was wrong, and she was sitting in her bed, broken glass everywhere, and I walked in to see what had happened, and she said that she saw two shadowy figures looking at her. And I was so mad that I ran outside wanting to fight anyone, but there was nothing. I went back to my sister to see if she was okay, and she told me that the shadows made the glass break. 2 more days passed, and I was beginning to sense that something evil was in my house. But I didn't say, it says. Night after night, I stayed up waiting to see if anything would happen. And I really didn't care about anything at that time. I just wanted to know what was going on. One day a priest came to my house and blessed it, and to tell you the truth, that really didn't work, because the same night I went jogging and I felt something behind me, and I suddenly turned my head and I saw a shadow person. The thing that's funny is people think that they're aliens, but they're really demons. I know, because I'm hunting them down for like 7 years now. Some people say I might be crazy, but I've been to doctors and they all say the same thing, that I'm fine. I don't know. This one's, it could be true. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I think you don't ever chase evil. You don't ever chase evil. You just expel it, push it away, keep it away. You don't pursue it. If you pursue it, you're in for a real bad situation. Because I really believe like there's certain rules, or at least there's a matter of maybe, for lack of a better word, an etiquette. But once you break that etiquette, it's like game on. In other words, I think that for the most part, even if they are a really aggressive spirits, they will not go out of their way to really, really hurt people. There might be little scratches and pushes and stuff like that. But once you challenge that, and once you say, you puff out your chest and say, all right, come on. Well, then it might really, really escalate, and you might be in for a whole lot of problem that you didn't anticipate. And I think part of that is because they may have to, a negative essence or entity might have to gain access to a place over time. In other words, they might be in an incredibly weakened condition for quite a long time. And so they play their games to get you to be afraid and get you to surrender little by little. And as you do, they become more powerful just because they're able to manifest more completely, because your aura with your fear shrinks and it's not repelling that as strongly. And so, but when you challenge them, when you like, oh, right, come on, you're basically saying, I acknowledge your full force and I want to take you on head on. And so it's like you're granting a sense of permission at that point. Like maybe they can't manifest fully within a home because a home is sacred. They can manifest to a certain degree, but once you challenge it and once you start provoking, then you are acknowledging and granting a permission of sorts for them to be able to to counter that. I don't know how to explain it, and I hope what I'm saying is making sense. But I really think there's something to that, because like negative hauntings start out so subtle, and I know some of it might be that's just the ploy. That's the ploy of being so subtle that people question their own sanity and they question their own faculties because, I'm just probably imagining this. No, it's not really, because if it was over the top and things started flying, you wouldn't have any doubt that something was going on. But it's one thing just to be in a bad mood all the time and have that oppression and that negative charge being constantly sent to you and dealing with that. And so it breaks you down over time. But I think also that's about all they can do initially. That like they aren't empowered enough in your space until you surrender. And as you surrender, that's when they become more strong and more powerful. And perhaps they feed on the fear that you exude, and that gives them more power in your space. But I think a home is a sacred area by virtue of, maybe cosmic law. I don't know. But as we surrender and as we give up, and as we feel like we are not empowered and we are in fact vulnerable, by acknowledging the vulnerability, you are empowering or giving power to something to hurt you or your home or your family or whatever. So it's incredibly important to not pursue darkness. Don't pursue it, because then it's like all deals are off, all bets are off, all those rules are out the window, and then they can be manifest in their true strength and form, I guess. Not to suggest they're all so mighty and powerful, but if they're subdued at all, it works in your favor. If they're not, then you're in for a hell of a battle. Just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. So, let's see here. But I think that person's being really foolish, for the record. I think that person's being incredibly foolish. You don't challenge, you just take measures to push them out or bring someone in that can. So hold on a sec. So I hope that I hope that made some kind of sense. It does in my head, but it's one thing to have a thought or an idea or belief, but then to try to translate it in a way that makes sense. So you guys will have to let me know if that made sense at all. I hope it did, because I think it's powerful. All right. So now we're going into Maryland. I think we are. Wow, this one's pretty long. Okay, so this one says, I worked for years as a professional psychic, and ghost encounters is just one of those themes that I deal with regularly. I've heard a lot of stories, not just from people that I help and my clients, but from other individuals that tell stories of how the deceased loved ones come to get their dying love. Oh, okay. The following story is so sweet and tender, I thought the readers here would really enjoy it. And you know what? I think this will be our last one for tonight, because it's pretty long, and we've been at this for about almost an hour, about 10 minutes short. So this is about a 10-minute story here, close to it. So Valerie and Barry were very much in love and planned to be married. A second time around for both of them, they were looking forward to beginning a new life together, and Barry's mom was bedridden with a terminal illness that left her unable to speak or voice her needs, and Valerie and Barry took turns sitting by her bed for a while in the evenings to read to her. They knew that even though she couldn't respond verbally or physically, that there was something inside of her that registered the loving support that they gave her. She had once been an active community leader, and her children benefited from her persistence and loving care. They were heartbroken to see her now frail, ravaged with disease, and she could no longer focus her gaze and stared emptily into space. And they had lived together for over 3 years and were ready to make it official, but because of Ma, they had postponed their wedding several times. And friends and other relatives assured them that they would take good care of her while they honeymooned in the Caribbean aboard a cruise ship. And no one knew how long Ma would live, and she was already in her 80s, and everyone joked about her outliving all of them, and as the family history was a long-lived people. Her father had lived to be 95 and her mother 93, which they attributed to their involvement in the community, staying active and maintaining a sense of humor. They had been active up until their deaths of stroke and heart attack, respectively. They had not languished in pain, as so many of their peer group had done, and as one niece said, they did well with their lives. Whereas the loss was duly grieved, one could not help but smile upon looking back over their busy lives, and they had made the most of every moment, and God had allocated to them. They took the good with the bad in stride, and troopers of a very special order. With some reluctance, they decided to have a small wedding in the backyard, and Valerie's 2 daughters delighted in arranging flower sprays around the arbor and the canopies that covered the dining tables, and they fussed over their mother and even wheeled Ma's hospital bed to the window so she could watch. It was a festive occasion with family and dear friends present to celebrate their official union. The next morning they left by plane to Florida, where they would board their honeymoon liner. While getting dressed for dinner, Barry suddenly doubled over, flushed red, and sank to the floor. At 40 years old, he was suddenly dead of a heart attack. Valerie was strong, a very strong spiritual person, but almost fell to pieces when she realized Barry was gone. She didn't need the ship's doctor to tell her what had happened. She felt it, and she knew Barry was dead and that there was no hope of him being resuscitated. She was in shock, but she rose to the occasion, abandoning the ship with the gurney and Barry's body, and she made the necessary calls home to let the family know, and Barry's son flew down immediately to help Valerie while other family members sat, wringing their hands and sobbing. They had not even had time to clean up after the wedding, and bright-colored wrapping paper with pretty white bows overflowed in the trash cans out back, and other presents and boxes still lay in the kitchen counters as the girls were planning to collect the cards and send thank you notes to all the guests. Part of the cake sat in the refrigerator, and empty, as well as the half-filled liquor bottles adorned the kitchen and pantry. The festive occasion now turned sour, left everyone grappling for something to say or to do, but there was nothing but attend to the funeral arrangements. Valerie went through the motions, doing what she had to do, only in private permitting herself to openly cry. She had 2 daughters, Barry's son and his mother, to attend to, and so she resolved to move on with her life as the best she could. She felt the void, but continued their routine by simply being by Ma's bed for the nightly reading. 3 weeks after Barry's death, Valerie sat by her mother-in-law on the bed when Ma suddenly looked up, straining her eyes to see something or someone in the room. She had not been able to focus, nor had she shown any interest until that point, and Valerie turned to see what she was looking at. It was late, and she was tired. She had been about ready to call it a night when she saw Barry standing there smiling. Barry was a Libra, ruled by the planet Venus, goddess of love and beauty, and was true to his ruling planet. He was meticulous in his dress and personal appearance, which the apparition mimicked except for one small detail. He was wearing an orange tie with little white ghosts all over it. Valerie looked at him and asked, "Where did you get that god-awful tie?" The only response she got was a smile. When she turned to look at Ma and then looked back, he was gone. A few hours later, his mother passed, and Valerie knew that he had come for her. The ghostly tie was a reflection of his sense of humor. She was not afraid, nor was there any reason to be. Barry was the same in death as he was in life, and a tender last moment passed between them as he faded into the Netherlands forever. There is no question and answer scenario as many of my other stories. I listened and gave feedback as best as I could. She wanted to share this with someone, and I was the one. Thank you, Valerie. I hope all is well. That's a beautiful story, and that's a good way to end the show tonight, huh? It's almost as if I planned it that way, but honest to God, I didn't. I had no idea what was next, but I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Thank you all so much for being here and being a part of the portal every night when we do it. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow night with our Friday edition, 2 hours of whatever I can put together for you. So I hope you guys will be there, and I hope you guys have a great Friday beforehand, but I'll be waiting for you here to open up the portal once again as we take another journey. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and laugh as much as you can. I'll be back tomorrow night, so love you guys and sweet dreams.